everybody, and this is our numbers segment. We got Johnny on the spot on the couch, and Dad across from me, and me right here in my seat.
Yep.
And we are your favorite voiceover talents.
And favorite marketing assistant.
Yes.
Big John.
Thanks.
Hey, it's been a while
Appreciate
since we've talked about some of the people that we try to promote a little bit of their merch and also their
Speaking
coaching
of,
stuff.
Get a mug, get a mouse pad, get a sweatshirt, get anything that you want inspired. Well, not anything, but
Lots of things.
Lots of different things on their website, vomerch.com.
Mike Hathcote.
Mike Hathcote. Almost said math.
Math Heightcoat.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Mike Hathcote. And then our some of our coaches that we promote, of course, our favorite, Bill DeWeese.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. Well, Damon can put his
we got
contact information there.
Alex DeWeese does VOTech Mastery. Like I said, it'll be in the description below. MalloryFiverTraining.com. And then Bill DeWeese Live.
Boom.
Bill DeWeese Media.
I'm seeing that more often on my. So I subscribed to Bill's channel a while back, and now I seem to get a lot of updates that he's live or he's got a video, which is I tune in a fair amount.
Yeah, it's fun to watch him work. Yep.
That's a different kind of confidence right there.
Yeah.
I would not let people tune into me. Anyway, let's get into our numbers. Johnny, why don't you start out with yours, and I'll go to mine, and Dad can do his.
All right, I'll put a caveat because there's been a question before as to whether or not we also include auditions, warm responses, and jobs that we get from the roster in our numbers, and we do. So that's to confirm that.
Yes, we do.
That's based on our having our website up, and also the emails that we send out on a monthly basis, and the cold calls that we are making on behalf of the roster. So we put it all together. We're not going to separate them, but we put them all together. So just so you know, that's what it includes as well. So we had 39 warm responses this week, 6 auditions, and then 5 jobs, including Hudson's. So we had Tonga, Wanda had 1.
Yep.
Bill DeWeese reported 3. And one was a recurring client.
Oh,
I'm always happy to hear that.
Good.
And then Hudson booked a job with a new client. He'll probably talk about that. Sorry, I ruined it, but he is a part of the group.
You bet.
And so we want to include that. For a while there, we weren't so much. We were including it in the numbers, but I wasn't saying it out loud here.
You were keeping me out of the group's numbers technically.
I will say the numbers will fluctuate. I mean, we're going to have weeks where there's obviously going to be a dip in warm responses. They're going to be, it's going to go up. And the last few weeks, we'd had some really high numbers. This week, just to put a little bit of perspective in it, there's the end of the month, the beginning of the week, and then we got into the new part of the new month. And at the end of each month, we keep our database. Our database is clean, meaning and living. It's and live, so, Andy, Dad's assistant, is searching, and on a weekly basis, he adds sometimes 50, 60 contacts
to our database.
Yeah. And that's all over the world. And so we're adding those.
New opportunities.
But then we're also, undeliverables. So if people don't know what those are, you send them out. It doesn't go to the right website, or it doesn't go, maybe the email address is no longer available. Jane at ABC Video Production Company left, and that was the contact person.
Right.
So we go back and find that person. So we clean those all out, and that happens at the end of the month, and that's quite a process. Joe does a lot of them, but I help out now with me being full-time, but it took me about 4 hours to do just one because we have a lot
multiple.
But it's worth it.
It's worth it.
It's so worth it.
That's the difference between
while
us
we
and
didn't
other
send
people.
out, I don't believe Joe wasn't, he was away for some of the day-to-day, and so I wasn't able to ask him, but I'm pretty sure that we didn't send out the first couple days of the week that we would normally send out because we're getting that database clean. And that's what we want, because if we just said, well, we got to make sure we send out right away, that what ends up happening is that we want to keep your email addresses clean so that we lower those chances of those spam picking that up. We really want to make sure that we're giving your emails the best shot. And so that's why maybe it was just a little bit lower. We don't know. I mean, it's possible. Like I said, it can fluctuate. They're not bad. It's just that I want to put that caveat in that this is a little bit of an interesting week because it started with the end of the month, which we would have used up all your emails for that month, and then we had to get through the database and make sure those were cleaned out at least one day, and then sent out for the beginning of the week or beginning of the month. So,
and just for anybody who maybe has a question about what John said, their emails still get sent out, even though you didn't maybe send them out, Tuesday or Wednesday when you normally do it. Joe will still push those out and get those out for you.
Whatever you pay for,
yeah. It's not like he's just
that's a good reminder.
Just so that people know, we never skimp on people's. We never do that.
Quote unquote fudge on the amount of emails. We even did that around Christmas time and Thanksgiving. We sent out a lot to go because we want to make sure that the amount goes out for you, because that's what you're trusting us to do, is to send out on your behalf, and we appreciate that because it's a big trust factor is to send a company money and hope that they send out on your behalf.
Some places could just say, you get 100 emails a month, and they just send them out no matter what month it is.
Yep.
And this week you're supposed to have 25 emails going out.
Yep.
Just send them out during Christmas. Well, those could be just lost, in the shuffle where you guys don't do that, and that's another.
And
taking
because we work very diligently at keeping it live. We have multiple people watching that database and make sure it's clean and living, that those emails are going to the people that
another value
they need
add.
to go to.
Yep. Anyway, sorry, that was a long
that's
diatribe.
Good job.
My week, 3 warm responses, 0 auditions. I had 2 jobs this week. One was one that I thought I had last week, and I told people that I thought maybe I had it, and then he just said that he wanted to audition for it. Kind of, it's a recurring client of mine. They ended up coming back to me this week and saying, actually, you did get the job. So, and then I did get another one, which was, it's not like that. It's kind of similar, but I got second place in a job, and they said, the guy that I was contacted back and forth with, he said, I liked your voice, but the client liked this other guy's voice. Well, then it's been like a month, and he came back and said, on second thought, the client doesn't like the guy's voice. He kind of read it as a pharmaceutical ad, and they wanted more of a empathetic tone, and he really liked my voice, and so they gave me a shot. Now it was $75 less than what the original budget was. They said, can we do it? Because I think they already paid him.
Yeah.
So I did it for $175 instead of $250. And then, so that was the new client. And then Fiverr had a $12 job, $15 job, get 12, and then a $18 job for $14.40. And then I did editing for Dad about 2 hours or 10 hours this week for a total of $496.40. It was the week of the revision for me. And that, if you're in voiceover, you've been in it for a while, you know that you have those weeks once in a while where you're clipping right along, and it's like, wow, people are taking every single thing that you take, every take you make, everything, and then all of a sudden you have a week, and it's like, here, we need a revision here and here and here, and it doesn't sound great here. We changed the script here, stuff like that. So it was the week of the revision for me, and that's fine. It was like you said last week, I'll have chances to work on my thankfulness for not getting my goal.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Good thing I got my goal a couple weeks ago, multiple times in a row. So anyway, that's $496.40. So,
and as you get busier and do more projects, that's a good sign that you're having revisions. Lots of revisions. I mean, it could be a sign that you're no good, but usually if you're getting a lot of work, you're good. And so a lot of times if you're doing, like if I do 25, 30 projects in a week, well, I'm bound in the next couple of weeks to get revisions. It just happens. So that's not always a bad sign. I mean, it's not fun to do the revisions. Nobody likes to see those pop up. You always want to send it off, accepted, get paid, boom, everything's nice and sweet, but that's not life. My totals, by the way, my highest January ever in 13 years now was 17,000, maybe like 800 something. I made 24,000.
Wow.
So I was almost about 6,000 more. I try to make $25,000 a month, so that was closer. That was nice. So that gives me a little bit of leeway in the other months. Fiverr was $1,177 this week. I'm working at trying to diversify, and so I'm working hard on Upwork. I made $400 on Upwork.
Nice.
So
Beat me out this week. I didn't have a single job on Upwork.
and
this
then
week.
direct email marketing was $4,532. I had $6,109 total. $6,109.
Oh, nice. All right. And in other news, we've got a little bit of a special
A special
ad
edition.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a question from a VOMP member,
Ooh.
Ben
you.
Hauk.
Ben
His
Hauk.
name is. He did not mind if we mentioned his name. He watches the podcast and joined our ranks. I believe it was last month.
I have
we're
one
really-
thing to say about him.
Yeah.
I got one of my Fiverr jobs, Ben, if you're watching. So this person got a hold of me and said, Ben sent me your sent
nice.
me
Nice. Well, thank you.
their
Thank you,
way.
Ben.
And I said, Ben, I don't, and it wasn't, no offense, Ben, I just didn't know. I was like trying to think of a client of mine that maybe, or whatever. I was like, I don't know a Ben. And he said, Ben Hauk. And I was like, oh, Ben Hauk, part of our group. So thank you, Ben, for that. Still working on that. That was part of my revisions. So
Yeah.
maybe you know who I'm talking about.
Anyway, he and his wife watched the podcast. The
Original father
this
son.
is not in the podcast portion of things, right? I mean, this is not in.
This is just
This is-
the voiceover related.
this is the
but it's
voiceover
technically
related stuff.
part of our podcast.
So we'll
kind
be
of.
clear with him on what this is on when I get back to him. But he does watch the podcast as a whole. He likes watching us. And his question is I'll read the whole thing. He kind of sets it up as to what he does with his editing, but that's what it's about. It's about editing and then asking you guys what you think about that. And so I'll just get into it. So Ben says, I do my own voiceover editing and I don't find it problematic to do so. But I can imagine that as my business expands and I take on more and more long form projects, outputting my voice and not spending time editing long form recording can mean I record more in a day, but my days are also shorter. In other words, I might record, say, 20,000 words in a day, but spend none of that time editing. And given the paydays that come from that amount of recording, it may be affordable to gain back my time by outsourcing my editing. He says, this is the questions. I'm curious if Todd and Hudson might share a bit about the mechanics of their arrangement, which has Todd providing Hudson with jobs editing Todd's recordings. I'd be curious to hear the thinking behind Todd's desire to outsource his voice editing. I would also especially be curious to hear how Hudson handles with Todd editing when, I presume this happens, Todd has a mistake in his recording that Todd needs to fix.
Sure.
Basically, I'd be curious to hear kind of the nuts and bolts of being an outsourced voiceover editor. So that's kind of to your point. And then how the two, meaning you, Hudson, and how the two of you work together in addressing recording issues and delivering the audio, plus the economics Todd's seeing. So this is Dad. Todd sees in hiring out his editing. I don't know how much time we have exactly.
15 minutes
15,
about.
great.
Yeah,
That's
plenty
perfect.
of
So
time.
I don't know who we want to start with. Dad, if you want to go ahead, and then Hudson, you guys can go back and forth. But I thought that was a good question by Ben. We appreciate that. So
You've outsourced your editing to a fair amount of us boys over the years. Drew, I think, was the first one. that- audiobooks and stuff like that. And then he, obviously has had different jobs along that. And then I think Joe has done some. Mom's been there with you all along.
Yep.
And then me.
Yep.
I
hired
a couple friends of the family.
Yep,
Yeah,
friends of the family. I hired one gentleman that did editing. Whenever I had editing, he did that. And then whenever he wasn't doing that, he was doing marketing for me.
Yeah, and so then I took over that once I was done with my job at the wellness center, being a trainer, came home and started my own voiceover business, but I'm not as busy as you. And so you needed an extra editor. So I thought, well, I do voiceover. I need to learn how to edit. So let me do editing, killing two birds with one stone for myself. And now I'm fairly proficient at it.
Very proficient.
And so that's kind of out of necessity, which also kind of will go into another part of hiring somebody on that's giving somebody a job
Yeah.
and being able to pay them.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's kind of teaching me, but I'm also getting paid. It was that way. Anyway, so you can, that's just.
Well, Ben, and anybody else who's watching, there's a practical side and then there's a business side, kind of a philosophical side. And so I just wanted to talk about both of those, and then you guys can fill in the blanks here. First, I would ask myself, where am I at in my voiceover business? Because Hudson really, for the most part, I mean, could there be an outlier where he gets paid a lot of money and he says, I want to hire Mom. I got 2 projects that just came in, and I'm going to hire Mom, if you will, to do my editing on this project. But typically, if he does much long form narration, then he should do that himself because he's just not making enough money. You have time during the day. So to outsource that, you just need the money coming in. You have time, so you do the editing yourself. Yeah. So first is, do I have the money? And that also usually begs the question, do I have more time than money? If I have more time than money, then I do my own editing, for the most part, broad sweeping things. But basically, that's what I did too. And then it also, philosophically, you have to think about what types of voiceover you're doing. There's some people, you do more corporate and short term, short like commercial. Well, anything that's under 3-4 minutes, typically I do all my editing because it's just faster for me just to do it myself. I can do editing really fast. For me to have to set up folders and send them to Hudson and communicate with him, it's faster for me just to do those shorter ones myself. But for longer forms, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, then I try to, farm those out because I'm so busy. And for me to take my headphones off and get out from behind the microphone where I'm getting paid $300-$400 an hour, and I'm busy, for me to stop doing that and start editing that I can pay somebody $20 or $30 an hour or market for me, well, that's stupid. So when you get to the point where you're going to be hurting your business by leaving the microphone, in other words, you have projects regularly in your queue, that's philosophically and business-wise where you start to need to consider having an assistant. And that my first assistant was a marketing assistant, and I think that was the best decision that I ever made, having a marketing assistant, because what that did was my marketing just kept going on while I was working, and I kept staying busy behind the microphone, which then led to needing an editor.
Well, this might,
in that order, that's how I did it.
This might go without saying, but if I were to, I would stop editing for you if I got busier. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I would stop for you and focus on my editing. It wouldn't be, I would still do editing for you and then farm my editing out. Right. I would stop editing for you and do my editing. And then if I got really busy where I've got to be behind the mic more, then that's when I would farm out my editing to somebody else. So that I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yep. So first ask yourself, do I have more time than money or more money than time? That'll help. And then what kind of business do I have? Am I looking for a lot of long form narration? If I am, then you're going to want to consider, because you're going to make more money here than you're going to make doing editing for yourself. Go ahead.
One of the questions he had was more specifically about what happens when
the process.
Yep. The process. Okay, you know that. Okay,
I have that thought in mind. But just let me just say, because to me, there's the practical side of it, which is much easier than the philosophical business side. It's just a trickier thing, and you have to be careful. You don't want to get too top heavy with employees before you can support them. That's why I'm saying once you get to that point, well, yeah, you have to have a trustworthy editor. You got to teach them, and you got to have a process. But that's pretty simple. So I hired a marketing assistant. Not that everybody has to do it this way, but it worked very well for me. Editor, and then a financial assistant, so that I wasn't having to do invoicing and such. So first of all, practically, you need to teach the editor. If they don't know how to edit already, you have to teach them what kind of a DAW, digital audio workstation, you're using, and you have to teach them how to use that properly and become proficient on it. So that's one thing. If you can find somebody that's already doing it, great. That's wonderful. They probably will charge more. So
Yeah,
there'll be
definitely.
that. Then you just need to develop a workflow. And I'll talk about that, our workflow, and you can help me remember things if I forget things. And then what I try to do is I try to make sure that my editors understand that even editing for a client, not just the editing and the QC, but also the communication is marketing. It's marketing.
That makes sense.
So you want to do a good job editing and not have a lot of mistakes, QC, but you also want to communicate well with the people and communicate to them. Make sure they're in the loop and follow up with things and such. I'll keep moving on here. So first thing we do is when I get this is very practical. When I get an editing job in, I'll oftentimes contact, because I have two basic editors. It's Hudson and my wife, Becky. And we have kind of assigned different, because I have a lot of recurring clients and a lot of them are long form. And so Hudson does a lot of them and Mom does a lot of them. And sometimes they interact between the two. They overlap. But a lot of times I just say, oh, this client always goes to Hudson. This client always goes to Mom. So I just communicate that to them. Hey, I have something coming in. Hudson, are you busy? Can you handle that today? So there's that first order of communication. Then there's communicating the details, like, for instance, the style of the editing. Is it more of a conversational read, because that might be a little, or is it more, like medical or technical, where there needs to be more space, more breathing room in the editing? Because there's different types of editing. Go
Is
ahead.
it from a foreign country where it needs to be even more spaced out?
Exactly,
and
where
the
it's
read
not
needs to
their
be slower.
first
so that
language.
they're-
Right.
'cause that,
Yeah,
sometimes
good
that'll
point.
be.
Yeah, very good point. And not to get too far into the weeds, but sometimes when you get a foreign client, there can be grammatical problems. Some of my clients, I just do on the fly proofreading, and they're fine with it. Other clients don't want me to do that. And so that's something we have to communicate about too, because they're sending back grammatical fixes sometimes, and the person doesn't want them fixed grammatically. And so they have to determine, is it actually a mistake that I've read it wrong?
Or is it bad grammar?
Or is it bad grammar? And should we fix that? So then there's specific directions. Like a lot of people, we start out with half a second before and a half a second afterwards. Whether it's slide, it's audio files broken up in a module or whatever. Again, we're getting kind of specific here, but there's all those types of things. How much time to put between bullet points, how much time between headings. We get into more of the specifics about how we're going to edit. I send the script then, and if there's any questions, I expect the editor to get back with me with questions.
Via email, you send me the script.
Yep. Even though we live in the same house and we talk about it. But yeah, I send you the script via email.
And then you're going to talk about how we have a joined.
Yeah, we have an external hard drive that our tech guy has set up so that we have folders. Hudson has editing folders. Becky has editing folders.
They're all attached to each other so that Dad can drop it into a folder.
Yep. Name it. Yep.
And then there's edited and unedited. He puts the full audio file in the edited or unedited folder. Unedited folder. There we go. And then I go in, I can access it, open it up, grab the script, edit it, and then what we do with fixes is he sends us an email with the title and everything like that, and then we reply with fixes, and then we highlight the word or the section that was read wrong, and then Dad does the edit, puts the reread in the folder. We take the reread out, make sure it's right, and then put it in place of where the mistake was. So you just copy and paste, cut, paste, whatever you want to do, make sure it lines up right, everything like that, and then save it, and then we put it in the edited folder when it's all edited, and then either Dad sends it out via Hightail or we send it out via Hightail, and we send a confirmation email to make sure that Dad knows that it's been sent and that the client knows. So,
I create a folder with the client. I have a client's name in their editing main folder, and I create a folder with that client, and then the job has a subfolder, and then within that there's an edited folder and an unedited folder. It sounds complicated, but it's not. I create that, and then I put the unedited in the unedited folder. And when they're all done with the fixes, if there are mistakes, they then transfer that to the edited. So we're always keeping track of that. And sometimes there's multiple slides, like in a long module. And so that goes into the edited. So if we ever need to access that, we know where it's at. So it seems complicated, but it's really not complicated. It's very simple.
You stay very organized. And that's something that we find that a fair amount of people don't do. So
yeah. So if you want more, I mean, hopefully that's a good enough explanation. Maybe we went too far into the weeds. Maybe we didn't give you enough. But if there's specific questions, Ben, or anybody about exactly how we do that, we might be able to even, you could call and talk to Hudson, or you can call and talk to me, and we could schedule a time where we walk you through that. To me, it's not difficult because we do it all the time, but we might not have explained things perfectly, but we can do that and maybe give screenshots of what our folders look like and stuff like that.
Was there anything else on there that was...
No, I think you guys covered it all. I mean, again, Ben watches, and he and his wife watch. We're glad to have, and we're really glad to have him a part of our group. You talked about a marketing assistant. That's what we believe we are to those people.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So
you got your first assistant.
Yeah. And what you didn't have, I don't know how much time is there. So that's
about 3 minutes.
Okay. I know that you didn't have, when you first started off, you didn't have as many emails going out as some of these people do each month.
Right. True.
Because you were just starting that database. Yep. So that's the benefit of using us. And you say it many times, treat your marketing assistant as, or a direct email marketing as a 401k plan. We say that a lot just because it takes a while, but that's what we're here for. And we're here to answer these questions. We're here to help you along the way. And that's, Dad doesn't do coaching. And that's the benefit to us and to you, we believe, because he's available to answer these questions, and he's at our disposal when we have questions like this. So if you have a question and we can't answer it, he's here to help out with that. And Hudson's gaining in his knowledge so that he can take over the torch, if you will, once Dad can't do it anymore. So hopefully that's quite some time, but that's where we're at. Yeah. So. Well, I mean,
hopefully Hudson's ready, but I can continue to do it for a while. That's what you're saying, right?
So anyway, thanks, Ben, again for this, and send in more questions. Thanks, anybody that has them, and we'll be glad to answer them. It's fun to have that. So,
Yep. Thank you.
All right, there's our numbers, and check out our 44th episode on Wednesday, the 8th of February. Yeah, we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.